buddy. Eyes up here. You failed city. Wow. I know. Hey, witness the win.
Okay, this does not look like this is gonna end well. For you guys.
Easy, miss. I've got you.
You've got me. Who's got you?
It's you the right. What's the difference between you and me?
I'm not worried.
That is being human.
Boy, oh boy, was this week nuts. It started off with, hey, everybody believed that Netflix was going to own Warner Brothers within the year. And now here we sit where Paramount is now going to own them. What's going on, guys? I'm Slav. This is Slav's Free Talk, the Watchtower, where we talk all things DC. And yeah, it's nuts. I admit, I figured that Netflix was going to pull it out. I figured Netflix wasn't going to back away. When the bid went over $100 billion, I started to wonder, is Netflix going to go for that or not? But it was theirs to lose and theirs to walk away from, and they decided to walk away. It's crazy. I really did not think that was going to happen. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about some interesting things that Zack Snyder has stated on a recent podcast of the Happy Sack Confused podcast with Josh Horowitz. We also have a couple of things to talk about in regards to James Gunn and Man of Tomorrow, and some things David Zaslav said about the DCU. How's it going, everybody? Glad you're here. Glad you're listening. Glad you're watching. Nobody's in the live chat. It's 11:30 in the morning where I'm at. Not surprised at all. Most people are at work on a Friday at 11:30 a.m., but hey, the jobless can't go to work, I guess. Yeah, I mean, this is my job right now, I guess. Making content for all of you. Anyway, let's kind of get into it. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so make sure you put your thoughts in the live stream chat, and I will discuss those as they come up. First and foremost, let's get into it. James Gunn is currently deep in pre-production of Man of Tomorrow. This is posted from Everything DCU from a Threads post from James Gunn. James Gunn says, pre-production can be long and lonely, so I love it when friends come to visit us in Atlanta, like Bobcat Goldthwait, Pollyanna McIntosh, and Michael Rooker last night, and Ozu the dog. It's curious. Are we going to see some of them in Man of Tomorrow? I think some people are thinking, hey, it's a good possibility that one or any of them could pop up in there. Michael Rooker, though, he was already a character in the DCU. He was with the Eagle Hunter guy in Peacemaker Season 2, and we know what happened to him in that. So it'd be hard to imagine him coming in as a different character, especially since James Gunn said, no, we're not gonna have the same actors playing the same characters or different characters. However, because of what happened with him in Peacemaker, technically he wouldn't be playing multiple characters. He would be playing a single character because that character's gone, and now there's a new character that he can play. So that is a possibility. Bobcat Goldthwait, look, it'd be hilarious to see him pop up. And I'm gonna say something here that maybe is not too nice, but I thought Bobcat passed away a number of years ago. So seeing this, I was kind of like, whoa, he's still alive? Whoa. So it is what it is. Regardless, though, it's great to see that pre-production is moving ahead with Man of Tomorrow, as you'd expect, with it starting to film within the next probably 6 weeks or so. I think April is when they're looking to shoot or start shooting. So exciting times ahead. And You know what happens when the shooting and the production begins? That's when we start getting a lot of leaks and information and things that we didn't know prior. So I'm excited, but we're also leading up to Supergirl, and that's exciting. So we're going to be getting information about that. We got information about Lanterns that's coming out. It's due to come out at the end of summer. So look, guys, it's an exciting time to be a DC fan. And the great thing about it is David Zaslav thinks so also. David Zaslav, during the, I believe it was the latest quarter four earnings call, he said Warner Brothers Discovery was a massive success and reignited important legacy, WPIP, like our DC attack plan, which James Gunn and Peter Safran have been executing. It's a massive success, and it's reignited important legacy Warner Brothers IP. And he specifically mentions DC and their attack plan and really pushing forward with this new DCU, DC Studios, and everything. I think we talk about this time and time again. The DCU is a success so far. Superman was a success. Peacemaker was a success. Creature Commandos was a success. Those things were successful. David Zaslav states it over and over again. Had Superman failed, had it not been successful, you know what he would do? Not mention it. Because that's what you do. When things aren't working, aren't successful, and you're just kind of like, let's see how it plays out, you're not gonna bring it up. Oh, but Slav, they're in the middle of selling their company. Of course they're going to talk it up. Here's the thing. The sale of Warner Brothers Discovery does not hinge on the success of Superman. It does not hinge on the success of the DCU right now. Paramount wants Warner Brothers Discovery not because of DC, not just because of DC, but because of all the other hundreds and hundreds of IP that they have. That's not just DC. Netflix was the same way. Netflix didn't just want Warner Brothers because of DC and to bring the SnyderVerse back. No, it was because of everything else that came with it. So had the DCU been failing right now, had Superman not been a success, that wouldn't have mattered for this sale. Not only that, but Zaslav wouldn't have brought it up. He would not be saying that it was successful if it wasn't. So to sit there and act like this isn't a big deal, it is a big deal because you have the guy running the studio, the head of the studio, the head of Warner Brothers saying, look, DC has been a success and Warner Brothers has been a success because of what James Gunn and Peter Safran are doing. And that's great to hear. That is truly, truly great to hear. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about all this in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on Man of Tomorrow production, as well as David Zaslav's comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say below. All right, guys. Now we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, of this show. Netflix has officially pulled out of trying to purchase Warner Brothers Discovery. They announced this via press release on the 26th of February, which came less than 24 hours after Warner Brothers said, hey, Netflix, hey, we like this new deal that Paramount's given us. What do you say? Because at that time, Netflix had 4 days. They had 4 days to be able to match or do better or change their bid for Warner Brothers to look at it. Netflix didn't even entertain that idea. Netflix didn't even entertain saying, what can we do differently to maybe entice the sale to come to us? No, they just said, we're done. Thanks, but no thanks. And they announced in this press release that it had declined to raise its offer for Warner Brothers Discovery. Netflix had earlier received notice from Warner Brothers that its board of directors had determined Paramount's latest proposal constitutes a superior proposal. Under the terms of Warner Brothers' existing merger agreement with Netflix, Netflix issued the following statement in response. That the transaction we negotiated would have created shareholder value with a clear path to regulatory approval. However, we've always been disciplined, and at the price required to match Paramount Skydance's latest offer, the deal is no longer financially attractive. So we are declining to match the Paramount Skydance bid. Warner Brothers is a world-class organization, and we want to thank Zaslav, Gunnar Weidenfels, Bruce Campbell, Brad Singer, and Warner Brothers board for running a fair and rigorous process. We believe we would have been strong stewards of Warner Brothers' iconic brand, and that our deal would have strengthened the entertainment industry and preserved and created more productive production jobs in the U.S. But this transaction was always a nice to have at the right price, not a must have at any price. So I'm going to stop there. This, I think, is something that was a little shocking to people. I like I said a little bit ago, I truly believe that Netflix would have still come out and at least attempted to, hey, let's see what we can do to work out a deal. But their quote right here, this transaction was always a nice to have at the right price, not a must have at any price. That's the complete different take for Paramount. Paramount and Skydance Paramount, the way they look at it is, this is a must have at any price. And because of that, Paramount, hey, they came out the victor. They pushed harder and they said, hey, this is what we want. And we're going to pay what we have to pay to get it. And that's what happened. And that's the difference between Paramount and Netflix. Netflix was just kind of like, if we get it, cool. But Paramount was like, we need this. We want it. We're getting it. No matter what, we're getting it. And that's what happened here. Now, I think there's some different reasons why. One of the reasons why Netflix backed out, one of the reasons is what was going on with the Justice Department and their investigation. There was a lot of talk that was had about Netflix owning Warner Brothers Discovery, including scrutiny of whether the streaming giant's behavior wields anti-competitive leverage over creators. A lot of people don't realize this, and a lot of people actually thought, hey, they're going to get past this because Warner Brothers Discovery, Netflix have all basically said, we can get through this. We'll be fine. But the truth and the fact of the matter is, there was no guarantee that Netflix was going to be able to get through the Justice Department and then through regulatory oversight. It's just nuts. Like, you sit there and you think about it. You think in a way Netflix owning Warner Brothers would not have eliminated a studio. Netflix owning Warner Brothers basically would have been Netflix becoming a bigger studio and owning a studio. And Paramount taking over Warner Brothers is basically eliminating a studio. And if you think about it, that's not a good thing. Like, that, is it anti-competitive? Yeah, that is. Now, is Paramount in any better position to circumvent all this, to get past this, to get through the Justice Department, to get through regulators? I really don't know. There's a good possibility that it's an uphill battle for them. I know the plan and the idea is for this to be all completed by the end of this year, before the end of this year, so the sale can get moved in a pretty fast and timely manner. But I don't know. It's really interesting. Netflix, there's a lot of pundits that say Netflix won by losing. Shares of the streaming industry leader rose as much as 13% in extended trading late Thursday after the company announced it was dropping out. And that's another thing people don't understand is Netflix's stock dropped when they initially won the bid in December. It dropped, what was it? I think it was like 15% or more it dropped. It was nuts how much it dropped. It may have been more than that. And people did not like the idea of them having Netflix and them being put in debt and all that kind of stuff because of it, or being indebted to that. The shareholders, that is. But now their stock is going up because they pulled out. So that you can see that, hey, maybe this wasn't such a great idea for Netflix to do. It really truly wasn't. DC Studios, if people want to ask about that, rumor has it DC Studios will remain the same with James Gunn and Peter Safran as the heads, only with some changes in how marketing and distribution work. So apparently people are starting to report, whether it's true or not, I'm not going to sit here and say it's true, but whether it's true or not, that James Gunn and Peter Safran are 100% safe. We don't know that for a fact. I'm banking on that it's true. I am. I'm kind of leaning on it being true a little bit, only because Paramount has no comic book division. They have no comic book studio. They don't have creatives in that realm right now. So to come in and immediately get rid of James Gunn in the middle of a franchise makes no sense. Does that mean they're going to be there for the long haul? I don't know. But I think in the short term, in the immediate, yeah, James Gunn and Peter Safran are safe. But the change in marketing distribution kind of makes sense, because the idea is that Paramount is going to probably, look, Paramount has its own distribution. It has its own marketing teams. It has all of that. And instead of running multiple divisions of the same thing, they're going to combine them. They're going to get rid of their redundancies. So yeah, of course, some changes are going to be made there. So that's something to look out for sure. But that's what's going on. Now, I do see Hunter Iggy over here. He does pop up and says, don't forget to mention or forget that Paramount is now broke, but don't forget that Paramount needs to pay Netflix and the Saudis back. Paramount doesn't have to pay Netflix anything. Paramount doesn't have to pay Netflix anything. Warner Brothers right now has to, but Paramount doesn't. And paying the Saudis back. Well, paying the Saudis back is, we don't know how much the Saudis have put into it. I'm sure they put in a good bit, because we don't know all the details of this new deal. We don't know all of it. But let's say the Saudis are involved. Let's say they're involved for a hefty amount. That can be paid back from after the fact, after they get it. I'm sure they have a number of years to pay it back. And honestly, if they are an investor and somebody, they may want to just stick around. They may want to continue investing. They may, they'll take their money back and they'll want to get paid back for it, but they still may put more money into it depending on how things move. So don't think that, they're going to pay Saudi and then Saudi's just going to walk away and be done. Thanks for the money and see you later. No, they may stick around and continue being investors. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, that's to be seen, but that is something to look at as well. Kevin Davis says, folks, isn't flocking to Paramount right now. This is not going to change anything at all. Warner Brothers will be sold again in a few years. I disagree. The whole thing with Paramount right now and why people are not quote unquote flocking to Paramount is the uncertainty of the business at this point in time. Let's not forget that David Ellison and his father are very, very rich. His father is very, very rich, and David Ellison is not as, like, he's rich because of daddy's money, and that goes a long way. If his father is helping back this, they're not going to let it fail. Does that mean that they won't sell off? It's a good possibility that they sell everything or part of. They may buy it. They may do a bunch of stuff with it that they like, and then start selling off some of the parts that they don't want. That's a possibility. That is something to look at. But that there's no discussion. There's no guarantee that could happen or anything. Them being broke right now. Look, every company's broke right now. Hollywood is broke right now. That's why Warner Brothers is sold, because they were broke. And when you get down to it, they believe that getting Warner Brothers, getting this IP, all these IPs, getting everything under their brand is going to help them pull out of being in debt. And if that's the case, if they believe that, if they think they can do it, and they have a good, steady, a financial plan, then yeah, it's possible and it could very well happen. But on your side of saying no, nobody's flocking there right now. Really, we've heard about more people going there to Paramount than not. I mean, UFC's there. The Duffer Brothers went there. Yeah, sure. We heard that Taylor Sheridan, right? Taylor Sheridan, guy made Yellowstone, left. Okay, he left. He's going to Universal, but that's no big deal. Like, sure, Taylor Sheridan's a huge deal. He's a big guy, but in television. But let's not act like he was the only thing that they had. You have all these other IPs. You have the Star Trek. Now you're going to have DC. Now you're going to have Harry Potter. Now you're going to have Lord of the Rings. Now you're going to have you have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You have all these Nickelodeon things. You have Cartoon Network stuff. Like, you're going to have all of this stuff under one brand now. That, hey, you're going to have creatives that say, I want to play in that sandbox. I want to play in DC. I want to play with Lord of the Rings. I want to play with Harry Potter. I want to play with this. I want to play with that. And they're going to come knocking and say, hey, I want to have some fun with what you have. And that's why people are going to start coming. That's a big reason why they wanted all of that. So yeah, I get what you're saying. Right now, nobody's flocking there, but let's face it, people are afraid of the whole political thing when it comes to the Ellisons and Skydance Paramount. I think people need to just relax on that. I think people need to relax. When it comes to Hollywood, and politics, we have far more left-leaning type of Hollywood studios, I guess you can say, more outlets that are left-leaning. Sure, the Ellisons are right-leaning, and they're going to have a major conglomerate on their hands with Skydance, Paramount, Warner Brothers. And they're more right-leaning. But that isn't a bad thing. That's the thing that I don't get with people, is they think everything needs to be left-leaning. When we're talking politics, everything needs to look this way. No, that's not how you succeed in life. That's not how you're successful in life. You have to have both sides. You have to be able to see both sides of things. So the fact that, hey, they want to get CNN. Okay, so they get CNN. But that doesn't mean that the left doesn't have all their news outlets, which they do. But you just have another news outlet that could be more right-leaning. And hopefully, if they handle it right, it'll be balanced and fair. But regardless, if it's not, you at least have this station that, hey, this is giving you the right view. Over here, you have the stuff that's the left view. You should always have both. So to sit there and be upset that a company that is right-leaning is taking over something, is getting something, that's absurd. That's absurd. You should not be upset about that. You should be sitting there saying and applauding that, saying, okay, good. Now we have multiple points of view that I can take all this information in and make an educated decision on my political beliefs and agendas and things that I want to see done in this country. But you have people that are freaking out and saying, oh, the Ellisons just want CNN because they want to push Trump's agenda or push the MAGA agenda or push this or push that. That's not fair. They can't do that. That's not allowed. This is ridiculous. This is fascism, blah, blah, blah. None of that, that is all asinine and it's all ridiculous. It is all ridiculous. You need to sit back and people need to realize, hey, it's okay if a right-leaning owner owns things. So we'll see. We'll definitely see how it plays out. I'd love to hear your thoughts, though, in the comments below on what you're thinking about this. See, Hunter Iggy also asks, what are your thoughts on Paramount saying releasing 30 movies a year? What happened if they all flops? The likelihood of 30 plus movies flopping is absurd. It's absurd. You're looking at the worst case scenario, Hunter. You're looking at, oh, what if this happens? And the likelihood of that happening is very, very minimal. Very minimal. Are they going to have flops? Yes, every studio has flops. Every studio, there's not a single studio that puts out a handful of movies every year that at least one of them is not successful financially or with critics or audience. That happens. It happens to all studios. So when they're putting out 30 movies, there's a good chance that, hey, maybe 5 of those movies don't do well, but the other 25 do well, and that's good. You know, you have to take a look at how things go. Like, take a look at Marvel Studios last year. They put out 3 films. All 3 films underperformed financially, but you had 2 films that did great critically and with the audience. And you sit there and say, wow, that's unfortunate for Marvel, but that happens. That happens. You take a look at Disney. It happens to Disney. Every once in a while, they'll put out an animated movie that doesn't do well. It's part of running a studio. But the likelihood of all 30 being flops, that's absurd. Willie Fish to Gas says, pay the Saudis back with Zack Snyder. Please take him and his fandom. Throw it in a fruit basket to sweeten the deal. Well, Willie, thank you for that. That's hilarious. And it's a perfect segue into the next topic here. Zack Snyder was on a podcast with Josh Horowitz, his Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, and decided to talk about his plans or the potential plans for Zack Snyder's Justice League Parts 2 and 3. And he talks about how either could be a comic or animated feature. I hope you guys can hear it, but here it is.
What do you think?
Have you entertained seriously kind of turning that outline for Justice League 2 and 3 into a comic or an animated feature if someone gave you the wherewithal to do that? Is that an option in your head?
No, we've absolutely talked about it quite a bit. And Sure.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, we live in a world where
Yeah,
all that's possible, and
it is.
whatever form it would take, Broadway musical.
The unexpected, but sure.
So what's really funny here, Zack Snyder talking about animation, comic book, whatever form, Broadway musical even, a Broadway musical even. But he's sitting there talking about how, hey, I'm up for anything. Something that I've been saying for years. Yet the Snyder bros, the diehard crazy Snyder fandom, that section has been pushing back on me saying, you're wrong, Slav. That's going against the artist's vision. Why would we support that? That we can't support that. It's live action or nothing. Well, guys, right here, Zack Snyder is saying, yeah, we've talked about it. We've discussed it. And it's true. It's absolutely true. It had, look, here, I'm going to show you something here. Fandom needs a reset. I said it's time for a new direction. Why the Snyder fandom needs a reset. I posted this a few months ago, and mine was all about time for a change and a new path forward, animate the SnyderVerse, why we should move on from restore the SnyderVerse, so on and so forth. I wrote that a few months ago because that is my belief. I've been pushing the animate the SnyderVerse for some time. I have since, over the last 2 months, said maybe we should just look at comic book form. If we look at comic book form, then maybe at some point they could put in an animation if the comics do well. But regardless, we now know that Zack Snyder's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do animated or comic. We've discussed it. There's a possibility for any of this to happen. But he's a busy guy. He's doing The Last Photograph. He's doing that Brawler movie. He's doing this. He's doing that. Like, he's got a whole bunch of things on his plate. And maybe eventually it does happen. And I'm all for it. But let's not sit here and act like, hey, this is going against Zack Snyder's wishes. Because it's not. He's discussed it. Years ago, he talked about how they discussed doing a origin of Robin, of how Robin died, and Joker, and I believe it was comic book form. Like, that was something they were going to do years ago. So there's so much here that people just love to ignore. But guys, it's a possibility. Now, what's going to suck is you're going to hear a lot of people coming out of this and saying, restore the SnyderVerse is happening. It's happening. No, this doesn't say it's happening. It says that they've been in discussion. They've had some talks about it, and anything is possible. Anything. I don't think this is going to be a decision they make while this sale is going on. So this will probably be something that happens once the sale is complete. But it's still a possibility. And that's great to hear. Because I've always said I want to see the completion of the Snyder Cut. I do. Or the SnyderVerse, that is. And I do. I want to see the completion of it. But done the right way. Done the way that makes sense. Done a way that doesn't harm James Gunn's artistic integrity and his vision. That's what I've always said. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about this because it is really interesting for sure. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Geeper says, my worry is there won't be truth, that CNN will be state-run TV. News should be news. Truth is truth, right or left, no spin. As far as films and TV is concerned, I just want good media. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, but you can say the same thing about the worry about the news when it comes to the left, when it comes to MSNBC or CNN right now. Like, excuse me, where's the truth there? Could it be state-run? It's very possible. You know, people love to say Fox News is state-run, which, look, I'm not a Fox News guy. I used to be years ago, but I'm not a big fan of the way they handle things. But here's the thing. Like, you sit there and you look at these news stations that you can't sit there without any proper outside oversight. You're not going to know whether it's state-run or not. And there's always an agenda. I get news is news. News should be news. But you're always going to have, excuse me, commentators on these stations, on these channels that are going to have their own narratives and their own agendas. That's what and look, Fox News is big at it. CNN does it. MSNBC does it. NBC does it. CBS does it. They all do it. All their news channels have commentators who go on and they push either a right or left-leaning agenda, narrative. So, I mean, you're going to have that no matter what. If CNN were to stay as it is now, which has not been successful for them, or whether Paramount Skydance owns them. So, yeah. And when it comes to the media, I get it. We all want good media. We do. All right. Real Anarchy's in here, says, hey, you joined the beard gang. It suits you, bud. Thank you. I actually was unable to grow a beard. I was not allowed to have a beard for a couple years there. Where I worked, they did not allow us to have beards. We could have a mustache, but we couldn't have a beard. And the missus here loves guys with facial hair, so that's why I kept the mustache, even though I look like a complete fool. But she liked facial hair, so I kept the mustache. But yeah, since I got laid off a few weeks back, I just kind of let it go and got the beard back. So thank you. I think it does fit me too. So yeah, perfect. Thank you. Willie says, did you hear that? That's the sound of Snyder Bros crying out in unison. Real Anarchy. I think a comic book option would be the best approach for Snyder Cult because they would have professional writers creating what is essentially a script for them. Yeah, you're not wrong. It also says they could then use that as a foundation to recreate the entire project using AI. Whoa. Good thing Donovan's not in here. Woo! But you're not wrong. I mean, that is something that they could do. They could take those images from the comic and just kind of animate them through AI. And I think that would be really cool. Hell, even something that the studio could lean into is trying out some new technology in a motion comic of some sort. So yeah, I don't deny that would be a good idea. Not at all. LMAO says Real Anarchy. I'm sure that was from my Donovan comment. Geepers, he says, I get you, but like CBS pulled an interview of a candidate because he was on the other side and 60 Minutes didn't run a completed story. That is bad. But let's not forget, look at what happened in the election, the 2024 election, how they manipulated interviews with Kamala Harris so she looked intelligent because she can't talk. Like she literally is unable to have coherent conversations about policy and politics. So those interviews on different networks were edited to fit their agenda and their push. So as you see, it's not just happening on one side. It does happen on both sides. And yes, I agree. That's terrible. It should not happen like that, but that's how it is. Anarchy says, I mean, they've been using AI to do all those AI slops. That's very true. All right, let's move on. I got to finish up here quickly. Let's see. Zack Snyder talks about his fandom real quick, or the fandom and how his fandom has been called toxic.
If you were in my shoes, there were numerous times, dark times, when I would say there is no chance that there will ever be my version of Justice League will never exist. And it can't. Cost, politics, everything stood against it. And yet it exists. And, I think the fans should never forget that they did that, and they also did a lot of, we raised a ton of money for suicide prevention, and they really did a lot of good. And I think that they catch a lot of flack for being toxic or whatever, but they literally saved human lives. So you can go fuck yourself if that's what you think.
So did they actually literally save lives? Yeah. I was part of it. I helped raise money for AFSP under the Snyder Cut and SnyderVerse name. I did that because I felt it was honorable. I felt it was the right thing to do. But for him to sit there and say that they get a lot of flack being called toxic, and he just can say, oh, it doesn't matter. You can call them toxic, but they save lives. See, that it's not just about that. Everything I've had to say this a few times the last couple of days. Things aren't black and white in life. They're not. It's not, hey, it's this way or this way. Look, I acknowledge the great and the good things that the Snyder fandom did with raising awareness for suicide prevention and things like that. And you can acknowledge that. But you cannot then negate and not acknowledge the stuff like, I should have had this pulled up already, like this. Or things like this. Fire James Gunn, hashtag Fire James Gunn. Or things like this. Review bombing Godzilla vs. Kong because we're upset we're not getting a continuation of our universe. or things like this: boycott Warner Brothers Discovery. And you can see a lot of ugly posts about that and the things that they post, and things like this showing people that, like, again, you can sit there and acknowledge the good that the fandom did, but you cannot ignore the terrible and disgusting behavior that they did as well. Now, am I going to sit here and say that the other side was all rainbows and unicorns and perfect? No, they're bad too. And when I see them go, when I see them cross a line, I call them out for it. But you can't just act like, hey, they saved some lives because they raised money for AFSP, so all is forgiven for them. You can't do that. You just can't. That fandom is toxic in many, many ways. Let's not forget that they continue to bully people for liking the DCU, for supporting James Gunn. They bully James Gunn. And what is the number one cause for suicide in the United States? Being bullied. Being bullied. You see, you can't sit there and say they're not toxic, and you can't sit there and tell people to fuck off and calling them toxic when they are truly being toxic. And this is the stuff that I hate about Zack Snyder. This is the stuff that I dislike what he does. Because he's just sitting there and trying to say, my fans are great and perfect and they're awesome, and the people that say they're toxic, they're the bad ones. That's basically what he said right there. And it's complete bullshit. Complete bullshit. It's a shame, is what it is. Let's see. Luke Cage says, your problem is you put his fandom all under the same bubble. Those fans that donated the way they did aren't cultists. I agree. I completely agree. I've been saying that for years. I was one of the first many years ago, I think. I'm not saying I was the first, but I was one of the first who you had Snyder fans and you had Snyder cultists. You have the two different factions. You absolutely do. And I said that years ago, even while I was part of the fandom still. You had two different factions. But they are both Snyder fans. They are both, like, you have the umbrella, Zack Snyder, Snyder fans, and then you have the people that were good and the people that were bad. Zack Snyder isn't acknowledging the bad. He's not saying the bad needs to stop. And that's the problem. Donovan says, I don't care. I have no respect for Zack anymore. He can go F himself. Keeper says, Snyder is being intellectually dishonest. I just don't know why he would defend his friend Gunn when they post about him. I mean, I don't. Why he wouldn't? Okay, why he wouldn't defend his friend? I see what you're saying there. When they post about him, because he's dishonest, like you said, he's dishonest. Donovan, and also he is continuing to give his base false hope, and he did bring up they did entertain doing animation graphic novel, but that was years ago. Now there's no financial incentive to even do it. Yeah, I mean, I just talked about that. And yes, he does do things to entice his fans even more, but I complain about that all the time. Willie Fish to Gash says, is that a stuffed beaver on his table or an Aaron Fisher statue? Ridiculous. Donovan says, Dew will not call out blatant toxicity and will continue to give his fan base false hope. Snyder needs to stop. James M says, cry so more, would you? Okay. Whatever. Anyways, but yeah, let me know your thoughts about that. It's ridiculous. Last thing I want to talk about is this. Zack Snyder praises James Gunn. So let's hear this.
I mean, James has been very kind. He said you've been very kind.
James is cool.
James Gunn.
Look, I wish them all the best, and I don't have any. Like, it is what it is. It kind of,
him saying, I wish them all the best. People say that specific line, say, I wish them all the best, when they have truly walked away, when they've cleaned their hands of that era, that section, that part of their life. I wish them all the best. When you leave a job, I wish them all the best. When you break up with somebody, I wish them all the best. Things like that. That's when you say that. To me, it sounds like he has no intentions of ever going back to DC.
It's a weed, that 3-movie trilogy is a weed that just won't die, you know, and so it doesn't need to, like, it grows on its own. It has its own life, and it doesn't really is not concerned, I don't think, with James's Superman, which is amazing, and you know, all the best to them. And I can't wait to see the next movie, and it's just awesome. It just really, to me, it's just not the same thing. It's just like a different thing.
Is there anything when you saw James's version that, I mean, only James could do in that way that you appreciated in his take
Of course, James is singular in his storytelling, in his ability to kind of channel like sort of mythological pop culture into like what I would consider just iconic and very particular point of view that's both poignant and funny and all the things, you know. And I think he's like he's the best at it that I can think of, and I think that he's a great steward of that world. So
there you have it. Zack Snyder's all in with James Gunn. Go suck on that, Snyder cult. Honestly, it's great to see that he at least acknowledges and he gives him credit. He says some nice things about James Gunn. But is that going to calm down the cult? No, it's not. The bros are going to be still up in arms. They're going to say he was under distress, or you can tell he doesn't know. He doesn't want to say this. They're going to say stupid stuff like that. But in all reality, he said it. He said it. He believes that James Gunn is the right man for this. He's a great person for doing this. He's a great filmmaker, all that kind of stuff. He says all of it right here. And we have proof. We have proof. So it's great to see. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Do you think this is going to help ease the tension from the Snyder Bros, or do you think it's going to cause more division or more hatred? Love to hear what you guys think about this, because look, I mean, you have all of this stuff about him maybe restoring the SnyderVerse in animation or comic book form, and then he sits there and says, I wish them the best. I wish them the best. And James Gunn is great for doing what he's doing. He's a great person for the job. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. All right, real quick, a couple things, and then I've got to get out of here. I just got a message that my daughter is sick at school, and I have to go get her. Donovan says he praises Superman. Okay, but it just feels disingenuous when he will not even step up to defend his friend. I just cannot get over that. Says no, because Snyder is giving them false hope when it's not going to stop. Then it's not going to stop. Yes, I mean, you're exactly right on that. It will not stop. City Quest Style said he should simply say no. We are not continuing the SnyderVerse. But again, he was asked a question: were there any considerations of continuing it in any way? And he answered the question honestly. Yes, we've considered animation and comic form, which they should. I still believe they should do that. So look, I am somebody who sits there and says and believes that no, the fandom shouldn't get anything. They don't deserve anything. But I'm a little selfish and I want to see it. So yeah, that's all. Donovan says also the whole comic and animation thing was years ago. See, we don't know that, Donovan. You're just jumping to conclusions here. Yes, we know that he has stated it years ago. We know that he talked about it years ago, but we have no idea if what he's saying here was something that happened a few months ago. It happened a year ago. It happened 2 weeks ago. We don't know. You know, it's a little disingenuous to just sit there and jump to conclusions saying, oh, he's just talking about what happened years ago, because we don't know that. So we have to take it for what it is sitting right here and hearing what he's saying here and take it as is. Maybe it was that. I did mention that when I was discussing it. Yes, they talked about it years ago, but it sounds more like, hey, this is something that was recently discussed. How recent? We don't know. But that's what it sounded like coming from his mouth, whether right or wrong. All right, guys, I do got to get out of here. Like I said, my daughter has to go get picked up from school. I'd really like to sit here longer and discuss all this, but hey, fatherly duties, that is. So guys, thank you all so much for stopping by. Please hit that like button, hit subscribe. I got a new video out today about who I think should be the director of Paradise Lost. So go check out that video, comment on that. And with all that said, guys, I will catch you all later.